Any questions from anyone, please? Okay, fine. Seems to no questions. See, just now I circulated on email. So there just I mentioned we have a recorded videos for below listed courses. When I talk about Fusion Cloud, these are the courses where we have a recorded videos from the live classes, and EBS, these are the courses we have a recorded videos. So since we are going through this cloud financials, if you don't have a good knowledge or experience on EBS financials, this course may be useful for you. If you think just you want to explore on that EBS financials also, you may go with this course. And if you want to go with the basic knowledge of SQL or PL SQL, you can go with that. You can just go through that email and you can just get to know all these courses. If any information you require on this, you can reply to that mail or else you can talk to the team. Okay, this part we'll see later.
Lakshman,
Yeah, please.
that Oracle Fusion Cloud HCM technical, what is that about?
The technical part, like in EBS HRMS also, when you work on EBS, there will be fast formulas. There will be some technical stuff which need to be handled by functional consultant. The most of the consultants we see in EBS also HRMS techno functional. So there will be very relevant technical work for functional people. So to cover that, just we have this course here. You could see all the BIP reports, BI reports, business intelligence publisher reports, and OTBI reports, and fast formulas, HCM extracts. Okay, so more like technical components. I mean, technical components in the sense technical work which is related to Fusion HCM. Okay, just you can reply to this email so that we can share detailed course curriculum for respective course, so that you can go through it and you can take some decision. If you are looking for any course related videos, you can just take these videos, and whenever we run the new batch, you can attend for live classes also for free. Okay, if you take the videos, that's how we have option. Okay, you can reply to this email, just the same the same information just now I shared through email to everyone. You can go through and you can reply. Fine. So this we'll see later. Fine, done. Any questions from anyone, please? So in the last session, we completed up to setting up invoice options and payment options. I think we started with the procurement agent. We created procurement agent. We created reference data set. The reference data set. Okay, after creating that, we created payment term and we assigned payment terms to reference data set. So at the time of business unit creation, whatever the reference data set we select, that would get defaulted for all BU specific data reference objects. So only for payment term we updated, we overridden that reference data set, which is defaulting at BU definition page. And later just we configured common options for payables and procurement, which is equal to financial options in EBS. And in EBS we have a payable options. In the payable options you can just manage the invoice and payment related process and controls. That in Fusion we have as a separate options for invoices and payments. We have a separate options to have a control or defaults. So far, any questions from anyone? Whatever we covered on those areas, when we are practicing on the instance, if you have an issue or any clarification required on completed classes or respective topic, please let me know. We can discuss. If no questions, we can just continue with the AP
Hi,
config.
Lakshman. Hi, Lakshman.
Yeah, please. Hi.
Yeah, one question.
Yep.
In reports, we know that multiple values are able to pass in parameters, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Where in ESS job, we are not able to pass. Is there any setup or anything we are missing in that?
See, when you talk about report, it's all about as a part of report definition, you have to set the parameters. Whatever the parameters you specify that at the time of report definition, those only system will display. So you have one report where you just programmed so and so query need to be executed. When you submit the report, it won't ask you the parameter. Reason, the report definition level there is no parameter. Okay, fine. So that is a part of report definition. Okay, at the time when we talk about reports, we'll see that point. You can raise the same, and even we'll go through very basic OTBA report to understand how to write the SQL queries in the cloud environment. So at that time you can,
Okay. Okay.
yeah, we can see how.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, thanks. Any other questions, please? So these are the, just we are working on payables configuration so far. Whatever we completed, any questions from your side, or else if you have issues with instance, please let me know. So anytime any issue with instance, you can write an email on this erpc.com@gmail.com. So if you have issue with instance or videos, whatever we are sharing, don't send mail on any other email IDs which are used by our team. So they cannot help you immediately. Just if you can send mail on this, I can respond immediately. Okay, I'll be having access to this ID. So if you have an issue with instance or videos, let me know. You can write a mail on this, I can reply immediately. Fine.
Hi Lakshman.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah, for videos, I have the access for the drive, but for section 14 and 15, I'm trying to download a video, but it's not allowing me to download.
Okay, it's not. Can you just you're talking about current batch videos or previous batch videos?
Uh,
Sorry,
Current batch.
current batch. Video number
14 and the 15, yesterday's class and the previous class.
14 and 15. What I'll do is,
Yeah.
after today's session, I'll remove those two videos from the drive and I'll re-upload. Okay, that may work. Fine.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll do that. You try from your end. Still, if you have an issue, please let me know.
Okay.
Or else you may still, if it is not going to work, you may try from the different browser. Yeah, we'll see that.
Okay.
Fine. Yeah. So any other questions, please? Any other questions from anyone? Fine, no questions. Fine, good. We'll just proceed with the payables configuration. So we are using the user called as Google, right? So let's log into the instance. Fine. So go to our implementation project. Click on task list. Click on manage implementation projects. Click on overview. Okay, done. So this is the implementation project which we created, and from the same we are doing the required configuration. Okay, so after completing these setups, we'll see like distribution set creation. Say create distribution set. Like distribution set is not mandatory. We can enter manual distribution also, but for our testing convenience, just we'll use the distribution set, as well as we'll see how to create it. So create the distribution set. After creating the distribution set, so we'll talk about supplier, and we'll do the required configuration. First we'll go with the distribution set creation. So search for the task called as distribution sets. So which will allow us to distribute the invoice amount automatically across the different accounts. Right. So task name is manage distribution sets. Click on manage distribution sets and click on go to task icon. Click on create. You can see all existing distribution sets which are created by others like who are practicing on the instance. Select business unit. We want to create the distribution set for which BU. So click on LOV. Select our business unit. Our BU name is Google US Business Unit. So name we can give Google expense. We are creating the distribution set to distribute the expense amounts. By default distribution percentage 100. Just click on add, and here we can add one or two accounts. Say we want to distribute the invoice amount with the two accounts. So 50% should hit to so expense account. Say contains, can search for expense accounts. We'll take software expense. Click on add one more row. So remaining 50% should hit to different account. Say expense burden. So done. Okay. So if you are going to use this distribution with in projects also, like for project related invoice related information, you may provide project related information which we call as POET information. Anyway, for us not required now. Say save and close. Okay, we just create a distribution set. Now we'll talk about supplier. So if you want to create the supplier, so who can create the supplier? Only procurement agent can create the supplier. Now the current user is employee. The employee we converted as a procurement agent. The Google user is procurement agent. The procurement agent can create the supplier directly? No. So if you want to allow any procurement agent to create the supplier complete definition, we have to assign the role called as supplier manager role to that user. User is nothing but procurement agent user. So we have to assign the role. Say assign supplier manager role. Okay, we have one role called as supplier manager. If you assign supplier manager role to any user, that user can create suppliers under supplier site definition. Sites can be assigned to business units also. So if the user is procurement agent, say you have implementation user, if you assign the supplier manager, that user implementation user can create just supplier header information. The sites cannot be created by implementation user even if you assign supplier manager role to that user. Okay, notice this point. So supplier manager role will have access to the supplier sites and site assignment related provision, but those cannot be performed by implementation consultant. Only procurement agent user only can perform those activities. Even there will be function access that cannot be performed by implementation user. Okay, so we'll go and assign the supplier manager. Since we are dealing with the supplier and we are talking about procurement agent, along with this role we'll assign one more role called as buyer role. Okay, we'll assign supplier manager as well as buyer role to the user. So after assigning this role to the user, we don't need to assign anything to supplier manager or buyer role. Okay, just these are the roles which will give the specific function access. So we are not going to perform any transactions with these roles, just the definition purpose will be using. Okay, so if you want to work on procurement process, you have to assign buyer role. Otherwise you don't find that procurement related tasks which you have to perform as a part of P2P cycle. Fine. So just we'll go and assign this supplier manager and buyer roles to the user. After assigning these roles, the next step is we have to run the LDAP. An LDAP job. Yeah, please. Any question? I could hear some noise, background noise. Hitesh. Yeah.
Lakshman, what is that supplier manager role? I'm sorry, I lost it.
Supplier manager role will give you the access to create the suppliers.
Okay.
Okay, in EBS, if you go to purchasing responsibility or payables responsibility, within the navigator, you can take the navigation, right? If it is a payables, supplier, entry. In procurement, supply base, suppliers. This is how you can find the navigation. So with that specific function, you can create the supplier. In Fusion, if you assign the supplier manager role to that user, that sort of privileges will be getting. You'll be able to see the function which will allow you to create the supplier. You don't find any task within the project to create the suppliers. Supplier creation, okay, you can do with the help of only this role assignment to any user. Fine.
Okay.
Yeah, done. Fine. First, we'll complete this task, then we'll proceed with the other configuration related points. So go to our username is Google. You can go to security console. Just wait for a while. It's taking time. I'm just trying to log in from the Chrome browser. Why is taking more time? Just will try from this browser. Yeah, please.
This is just related to now you started the login access from both the browsers, right?
Correct.
So is it allows multiple instances?
Yes, yes, multiple.
The same login.
For each tab, you can open the different instance. So I can go and open other instance.
No. Did you log into the same instance or
different instances?
Same.
Different instances in one browser in a different tabs. You can open different instances. So this is the one instance, and this is another instance.
Backend it is connecting to the same place, right? Same
That
same
should,
URL,
yeah,
same
yeah,
thing,
that
right?
should be that. Totally, it's different. You are accessing different instances at a time. So you can open 10
Yeah, but
tabs,
same
you
user,
can
right?
open 10 instances.
Yeah, but user is same. User login. It allows at the same time.
If you have a same user in all the instances, yes, you can. Otherwise, one instance also you can open in the different tabs, different windows.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. My question is one instance, it still allows. Okay.
In
Got it.
one instance also you can open in the multiple tabs.
Oh, that is my question. Okay.
Yeah, yes,
Same.
yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. Possible. Just 1 second, it is why it is taking time. Just give me a minute. Fine. So we have to go to security console, go to navigator, click on security console. So go to our user, click on user tab, and find our user. Go to users. The username is Google. Click on search. Now we have to assign these two roles to our user. Okay, supplier manager and buyer. So to assign the role to any user, click on the user login and click on edit and click on add role. The role name is supplier manager. So no need to assign another roles like supplier administrator and different roles, not required. When if you want to create the supplier manager role is would be enough. You no need to assign supplier administrator and other roles, not required. Okay, supplier manager role will be enough for us. So supplier manager, it's a copied one, the first one you can assign. Okay, supplier manager, say assign. So along with this role we can assign buyer role. Select, say assign. So anyway, we'll see how to how to verify which role has access to which privileges. So in that session we can see, just you can, once we go through that session, you can select any role and you can verify which privileges we have from the specific role, because a part of payables will work on it. Okay, fine, just we assign two roles. Click on done. So next task is we have to submit LDAP job, right? The roles whatever we assign, those should be synchronized. So we have to run LDAP job. Go to ESS job page. Okay, just click on navigator. Under tools, you can find the task called as schedule processes. And click on schedule new process. The job name is LDAP. Just type LDAP and just tab out and search and select the job called as retrieve latest LDAP changes. Select and say OK and say OK. Just click on submit. See, there was question from someone, right? So can we open the same instance in the multiple tabs? Yes. So one way just we are running this job, the other way just I opened the same instance in the other tab and say I want to submit another job same time. I can go to schedule process, say this payables invoice aging report or some report you want to submit. Any, just these are the reports which you could see. So I typed wrong. Any report, just you can select. Say for example, collections aging 4 bucket report. This is how just you can select from here and you can submit. So for this we have all these parameters, so we can submit from here same time. Fine. In the same way you can open the same instance in the different tab also with the same user, and you may navigate to setup and maintenance. So you can, all these sessions you can open, multiple sessions you can open in the same browser, the different tabs, or you can go with a different browser with the same user at a time. You can perform multiple tasks by opening all this at a time. Same instance, 3 tabs, 3 different pages. Okay, so possible. So anyway, we know like this LDAP job takes some time. Okay, anyway, we submitted. What happens is, before you see the status has succeeded here, you can assume already that updates are happened in the instance. So you don't need to wait to see the status has succeeded. Before system update the status has succeeded, you can just expect the changes are done. Fine. So just we created, just we assigned the job called as supplier manager and buyer role. These 2 roles we assigned to the user and we submitted LDAP. Now what we can do is, system will allow us to create the supplier. Before we go and create the supplier, we have to set the supplier numbering. Without setting supplier numbering, you cannot create the supplier. So we have one task called as specify supplier numbering. Okay, we have one task called as specify supplier numbering. We'll go and set it up. Say specify supplier numbering. Okay, we'll set up this. So after setting this number, we can go and create the supplier. When you talk about supplier in EBS, so we create supplier header, right, and supplier sites. So as a part of supplier sites, we create address, and for the same address, within the address, we'll give the, for the entire address, what is the site name we provide. But in the Fusion, as a part of definition itself, they given, first we'll create supplier header. The header only just here we are calling as profile. First we create supplier profile, then we have to create supplier address as a separate activity. Against that address you can create supplier site. So anyway, in EBS or Fusion we have to assign the site to be here. Site we have to assign to operating net. The same way here also we'll assign site to BU. Okay, fine. So in EBS, if you have access to 10 operating nets, you can assign the site to 10 operating nets. There is no control. But here, even if you have access to 10 business units, you cannot assign until unless that user act as a procurement agent for those 10 BUs. That is the control we have. So in EBS, like see here, what we do is we'll create the supplier profile, then supplier address. Then against the address, we'll create the site, and that site will assign to BU. In EBS, supplier site, supplier header that directly will create the site within the site only, within the site, in the sense as a part of site definition will provide the address. For the same address will give the address name, nothing but site name. That site will assign to OU. So just notice this difference. Okay, so the information point of view both are same, but definition point of view this is sequence. Here both we create at a time, but here we have to create as a separate activities, separate tasks within the supplier definition. Okay, we'll see in the system.
Lakshman, can you tell me why they separated that thing, supplier profile and the supplier address in Fusion?
See, here in EBS also you create a supplier and a supplier site. When you, if you want to create one more site also, existing address you can select. That option is available in EBS also, but here only the time of definition. So they given the separate option. Okay, the reason is, say your supplier address, in which address you are contacting. So you have a supplier address in Hyderabad. So in the Hyderabad address, supplier has a business functions for procurement. So they have a business function called as procurement. That means you can purchase and you can raise RFQs, you can ask for quotations, and they collect the payment also in that Hyderabad address. Okay, supplier address, whatever the branch they have in Hyderabad, okay, they have these three functions. So if you create the supplier address separately, you can specify for information purpose in the supplier Hyderabad address, okay, with which supplier you are dealing, that supplier Hyderabad address, what business functions you have, you can specify. Okay, the site address, the supplier address got which purposes, which functions they have, you can specify. When you create the site, so you are going to deal with the same supplier site, for what purposes you can specify at the site level. So they have procurement function, they have RFQ function, but you are going to deal with only say payment or only purchasing, say PO and payment. You are not dealing with RFQ. So this would be like information for us in future. If you want to deal with the same supplier address for RFQs also, you can verify within your system the address what we are dealing with the supplier as of now only for to raise the POs and payments only. So in future, if you want to raise RFQs, if you want to get the quotations also, whether which site is, which address is available with the same supplier with whom we are dealing, that sort of information you can maintain. You are really dealing for what purposes, that you can specify at site level. So what different business functions the supplier address has, those you can specify at supplier address level. That is the reason they given as a separate task. Clear?
Okay, thank you.
So that is the point, just we have to understand. So whatever you set at address level, that would get defaulted to site. You can override as per your requirement. We'll see in the system process. Fine. So this is what we are going to do. First, we have to specify the supplier numbering. Without setting the supplier numbering, you.
Lakshman,
Yeah.
I have a question.
Please.
What is the purpose of this privilege? To
Sorry?
be able to define a no, I mean, see, what is the benefit of being able to define the usages of the supplier address?
You don't know that in
Like-
EBS?
In EBS, we define it at the site level, right?
Yeah, site level.
Yeah. So you're saying it is at the supplier address level in Fusions?
Yes. See, you are going to create the multiple sites. Say, for example, you want to create the 10 sites. So when you create the 10 sites, for each site you have to select the address. For each site you have to select the address. So when you are selecting that address, first of all, that address should have that provision, that purpose from supplier site. That you can set whenever somebody is going to create the new address, they can have information that address can be used for which purposes. That sort of default purpose you can set over there. Going forward, when you create any new addresses, Again, you no need to contact the supplier. That is like some template kind of information which says like, so this site can be used, this address can be used only for these purposes. So as in EBS, straight away when you create the address, will just when you create the site will be setting. But here when you are creating the site, you can verify the site can be created for which purposes. First of all, that address should have that purpose. Within that address purposes only you can create the site purpose. Okay. So
Okay.
yeah, that address can be used for which purposes you can set. But as per our business process, as per our requirement, for which purposes we are dealing with that site, that you can set at the site level. Say that this address got three purposes. You may create one site against the same address that you may use only for RFQ purpose. Before you set for RFQ, the address level you have to verify. The address has for the purpose of for RFQ or not, you have to verify. Yes, for RFQ you have. And you are going to create one more site, site 2. The site 2 you want to have for so procurement and payment. So you checked one address. That address doesn't have function called as procurement and payment. Then you can look for other supplier, the same supplier other address. They may have multiple address. So you will be creating the site 2 against that address. Right? So supplier can have a different addresses where they operate the business. So when you are creating the site, which is the right address to communicate with the supplier for the respective purpose that you can choose and you can define. Fine. So that's how you can keep the purpose ready. I mean, the specifications at address level. The supplier may have a different addresses. So what purpose you want to deal with that supplier, based on that you can choose that address and you can create the sites. Then fine. Otherwise you will be just as per EBS directly will be having the sites only. The site will have a definitely address, but not as a separate definition. Once you create a supplier and supplier site in EBS, if you want to create one more site, even in EBS also, system will give you the option to choose the address. You can choose the address and you can create the site. That's how we have option. But address level separately you cannot set the purposes. Only site level definition only you can set it. Here they separated for the supplier record maintenance convenience. Fine. So here first we have to specify the supplier numbering. After specifying the supplier numbering, we'll go and create we'll create supplier profile and supplier address, and against the address we'll create the site. The site we have to assign to view. Assign site to business unit. Okay. So we'll perform these tasks now. So already we just done with the role assignment and we submitted LDAP job. So in EBS, when you talk about EBS supplier number specification, in EBS 11i version, we have a supplier number specification in financial options. In financial options, you could see one tab called as supplier entry. We have tab. Under the tab, you can set the supplier numbering. In case of EBS, they removed EBS R12. They removed supplier entry tab from financial options, that they given as a separate option called as payable system setup. Through payable system setup, you can specify the supplier numbering in EBS release 12. When it comes to Fusion, in Fusion we have a separate task. The supplier number specification is not at any options level. They're given the separate task. In fresh instance, it's a mandatory we have to set. Automatically system is not going to generate the numbering. You should set the supplier numbering, otherwise you cannot create the supplier. Now the instance which you are using, this is a Vision instance. Within this instance already the supplier numbering already specified, so that now here without setting the supplier numbering also you can create the supplier. There won't be an issue. But in the fresh instance, it's a mandatory task before you go and create the supplier. Anyway, we'll navigate to the task and we'll see. Fine. So if you want to set the supplier numbering, go to your implementation project. sorry, setup and maintenance, task list, manage implementation projects. Just click on overview, open the project. So this task you can complete from the project or directly from the home page. We have a search option, right? From there also you can do it. So say specify supplier numbering. You may not type complete task. So here you could see the task as specify supplier numbering. Just click on this task, click on go to task icon. So already here in this environment supplier numbering already specified. The next supplier number is going to be 1380. Okay, 1380. That's all. In the fresh instance it would be blank. You can set the starting number should be 10,001. This would be the first number which you create when you create the supply. I'm just updating. Okay, so this is going to be the next supplier number when we create.
Ashwan,
Close. Yeah.
any possibilities give a supplier number as a manual?
No, you cannot specify here. Only just it's automatic numbering. Okay, you have to specify. Manual numbering is not allowed. Only
Not
automatic. Only automatic.
But EB now,
Yeah,
that's why I'm asking.
yeah. EBS we have a specification how you want to run
Yeah.
the numbering, manual or automatic. Here, only this is the option we have. You can specify the
Okay.
what should be the automatic numbering that system follows. Okay, done. Fine. Now we can go and create the supplier. So we assign this supplier manager role, right? Supplier manager and buyer roles. Because of these roles, what system will do is system will be adding the relevant tasks into navigator. So go to navigator. So within the navigator under procurement, it should display task called as supplier. It is not displaying. So just you refresh and you just move to some different page. Sometimes based on the page on which page we are standing, that also matters. It won't display some sort of information. What we'll do is we'll just sign out and sign in and we'll try to access the supplier form. Once we assign those roles, system has to display the task in that. User is Google, provide password. Just go to navigator. Now system is displaying under procurement. It is the task called as suppliers. So you can get this task only because of payables supplier manager role. We assign supplier manager role to our current user, so that is the reason we are able to see suppliers task under procurement section. Okay, just click on suppliers task. Fine. Go to task list and say create supplier. Okay, create supplier. So provide supplier name. So we can give the, so we are just doing setups everything with the Google. Even supplier name should be totally different, right? So but just for our testing purpose, I'll take the supplier name also Google. Everything, all the definitions will go with the Google. I'll say Google supplier 1. Now we have to select business relationship. Here when you look at this business relationship, we have basically two values. One is prospective, other one is spend authorized. So that means prospective supplier and spend authorized supplier. What is the meaning of this? If you are dealing with any organization, to convert that organization as our supplier, say somebody submitted request to us to supply some material or to provide some services. In that case, normally you just there could be some help desk or procurement team will be having some negotiations or kind of verification process or validation process to accept that organization as our supplier. So in that scenarios, you can use business relationship as a prospective. The supplier is prospective type supplier, not actual supplier. So if you create any supplier as a prospective supplier, remember that supplier you can use in the sourcing process only. For some kind of bidding and other activities, you can use that supplier. You cannot use prospective supplier to create any transactions. You cannot create the purchase order and you cannot create the invoice by using prospective supplier. Okay, so since supplier core function is belongs to procurement, so based on the procurement how we deal with the supplier, they're given these two options. So if you create supplier as a prospective supplier, that you can use in the only sourcing process for negotiations and other activities. If you want to create any transaction with the supplier, you should create supplier by selecting the business relationship as a spend authorized. That means, so we can spend against that supplier. That means we can procure something and we can pay to the same supplier against the same invoices, or you can record, you can place the orders to the supplier. That means it's something like authorized supplier, okay, or say approved supplier. Okay, when you create the supplier, select only spend authorized if you want to use that supplier. So when it comes to procurement and all, just they'll be creating as per the procurement process how they deal with the supplier directly. They'll be taking that the prospectives into the system. Initially, the organization may create them as a prospective. They may have some validation process. Later, they may convert as a spent authorized. Once they are just through validation, if they identify they are just they get eligibility, that sort of process procurement department will follow. In that process they may use these options, but when you are working on financials, you don't need to deal with all those classifications. Directly you can create as a spend authorized. The spend authorized supplier can create, with this supplier you can create the POs and do invoices. And tax organization,
Lakshman,
yeah.
sorry. Is there any workflow involved from prospective to
You can set approvals also for that. Okay, you can set approvals. So you can create prospective supplier, and the prospective supplier you cannot use for any transaction creation, and your procurement team can have some negotiations with that organization. Once everything is done, so you can go and approve to convert that prospective supplier as a spend authorized supplier. You can implement approval process also. Okay, that would be part of procurement. Fine.
Okay.
Yeah, we can do it. So you can see, just since you are talking about that point, the relevant information you can see here. See the dashboard, this is a dashboard. Supplier spend authorized request. Okay, that means supplier is created as a prospective. The prospective supplier is submitted to convert as a spend authorized. So those pending approvals you could see here. Someone can create, okay, supplier as a prospective supplier. They can submit that supplier to convert as a spent authorized. So who has the approval authority to convert as a spent authorized, they will get the notification here. And the person who has approval limits to convert any supplier who is a prospective supplier as a spent authorized, they can approve from here. Okay, so this is the information related.
Lakshman, I have a question. So you said supplier approval process, that is a part of procurement.
Correct.
So what if company is not implementing procurement and only implementing financial? In that case, we cannot facilitate this, or
Yeah,
what
so
happens in that scenario?
yes, you can use it. Basically, that core, I mean, supplier procurement related object. So that is the reason generally the process, the negotiations and all we use as a part of procurement sourcing application, right? And again, we have a separate module called as supplier qualifications. So within those applications, this process can be used. Even if you are using just financials, yes, you can create supplier as a prospective supplier, and if you want to set approvals, you can set approvals, then notification will goes to respective person. Otherwise, just you can create supplier without approvals. There will be simple one tab called as convert as a spent authorized. If you just manual action, if you click on that, that would get converted. So that also,
Where is that? I'm sorry, I'm a
we'll
little
create one
confused.
prospective supplier. Okay, will convert as a spent authorized. Okay, so we'll see as a part of when we are working on payables. I'll take you through that. So for now, we'll see how to create the actual supplier which we can use in the payables process. Okay, so
Okay.
I'll just cover that point also if you want to understand. Fine. So we'll see how to create the supplier. Just click on create supplier. You can give the name as Google supplier 1 and select business relationship as a spent authorized. Tax organization type. This supplier falls under which classification of organization, say corporation, and tax country, rest of other information is optional. Now just you can click on create. Now system will create supplier profile which is equal to supplier header in EBS. Okay, provide name, select business relationship. Make sure that you are selecting spend authorized since we want to use the supplier. So just select tax organization type as any one of the classification. It doesn't have any functionality, just for information. Click on create. So system created supplier,
Lakshman,
Google supplier 1, and this is supplier number. This is what we specified through specify supplier numbering task. Okay, and automatically system is adding all these tabs. Okay, so to set certain controls and defaults for this supplier definition. Any question? I could hear some background noise.
yeah,
Yeah, please.
yeah, Lakshman.
Please go
Yeah,
ahead.
we can possible to create as an employer as a supplier is possible in Fusion.
Employee as a supplier. So,
Yeah,
so when you create a supplier, we don't have that option. So if you have expense report, automatically system it creates in Fusion same as EBS. But in EBS we have a function where you can go and you can select the type, right? Supplier type,
yeah,
the classification, organization, the type you can select as employee and you can create. But here, no, that option we don't have.
yeah. At the time of expenses time, we it
Yeah,
automatically create the
automatically
employer
it
as a
will
supplier.
create. Automatically it will create.
Okay.
Manual
For that, we
approach.
have to do any.
Sorry?
For that, we have to create any setup for that.
Yes, the setup's not required. In EBS case, what we do, we'll enable on checkbox, right? Automatically create employee as a supplier
Yeah,
in the payable options under expense report
yeah.
tab. But here, that is
Hmm.
also not required. Okay. Once you go and create the supplier, once you go and create the expense report in the Fusion expense, and if you import that information into payables, system will create invoice type as a payment request, not as expense report. Here it will create as a payment request. So we'll see that we are going to work on that Fusion expense also. So when we work on that process, we can see how it happens. Okay, fine. That is automation only they given. Okay, and one more point is you cannot create any expense reports in payables. You don't have that function. In EBS, you can create the expense reports in payables, or else you can use iExpense application. So but in Fusion you cannot create any expense reports as a part of payables function. That you have to drive from Fusion expense only. That's how they give it. Fine. When you work on Fusion expense, you will see that process. What is the configuration, how that would get converted, how we can bring expense reports into payables application, how those can be processed, how to set the approvals for expense reports. We'll be covering all this. Fine. So system created supplier Google supplier 1 and supplier number as we specified the numbering, and business relationship as spent authorized, and you can set certain defaults whatever you want to set. Say supplier profile level, you want to set the default payment method. Go to payments tab, and here you could see the payment methods. If you want to set any payment method as a default, so you have to enable it. Okay, select check or any other payment method, just click on default icon, it will mark as a default. So this is how you can set it up. So now we created supplier profile. Okay, it's nothing but supplier header information. We created supplier header information. Now we'll go and create the supplier address. Okay, supplier address. So supplier profile and supplier address can be created by implementation user also. If you create the user from security console, that user we are calling as implementation user. Okay, implementation user also can create profile and address if you assign the role called as supplier manager to that user. But implementation user cannot create supplier sites, and those cannot be assigned to specific BU. That is a point we have to understand. Okay, go to address tab.
Lakshman?
Please.
Lakshman?
Yeah.
Is it possible to change, you have set paycheck as the default payment, no?
Yeah, I selected
Is it possible to
default
change
payment method. Yeah.
Can it be changed in the future for some other methods?
Yes,
as
yes,
default?
yes. See, one we have to set as a default. If I set at profile level, that would get defaulted in the down the line. That is the reason we are setting any point of time. In EBS also, you can go and select any one of the payment method. There will be checkbox, right? We can enable. Any point of time, you can switch to other. Okay, you can change. You can say you want to switch to electronic. Now switched.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's it. Just it's all about, it's equal to some radio option only, which allows only one selection. So when you say default, it should be one, right? That's how you can change. Fine. So now you can go to address tab. So just click on create. Provide supplier address, say Google address. We'll just give as a address, Google address, and select country. The address belongs to which country. But we can go with the code US. Select and say OK. Okay, now you can provide the address here. I'm writing the dummy address. Okay. So select postal code. System will default city, state, and county as per the address structure we have in manage geographies. Done. Now this address purpose. Okay. So for what purpose we have an option to contact the supplier address, those you can specify. Say the supplier address, they have an office in this address, so you can contact the supplier for ordering purpose, remit to purpose, for RFQ or bidding purpose. Finally, when you create the site, you can specify. When you create the site, you can specify the reality we are going to contact the supplier address for what purpose. When you create the site against this address, these three purposes system will default, but finally you can override. Yes, reality you are going to contact this address for these three purposes, you can keep as is. Otherwise, you can just go with the other specification, you can override. Somehow it got refreshed. Okay, we'll find our supplier. Go to, already we created supplier, right? So go to manage suppliers and we can find our supplier and we'll proceed with the address definition. Click on search. You can search, the keyword is Google supplier search. Select this record, click on edit. Okay, we are in addresses. We are talking about addresses. The page got refreshed. Okay, so it's everything gone. So again, we'll give the address details, Google address and country. The supplier country is US. So these are optional fields, but still we are filling. Select any one of the postal code, it will default rest of information. And you can specify what is the purpose the supplier has this address. Okay, specify that. Now you can click on save and close. We created supplier address. Okay, we created supplier address and we given the purpose of address also. Click on save and close. Okay, now we have to create the supplier site. Yes, so go to sites. So if you are trying to create the supplier sites, when you go to sites, here the create site icon you could see as a disabled in case of implementation user. Okay, the user which you create from security console, to that user also you can assign the role called as supplier manager. But from that user you can create supplier profile and address only. Site you cannot create. If you go to site tab, you can see this create icon as disabled mode. Okay, since now we are accessing, okay, we are in this page with this Google user access, which is like a procurement agent, so this is enabled. Okay, just click on create. Select address. We have only one address for the supplier. Select that address. The address level, what are the options we selected, those are getting defaulted. Okay, so purchasing and pay purpose. Okay, so those you can specify, or else you are not going to purchase anything directly. You will be having some payment related process only against with the software, where you may create direct invoice and payables. You can uncheck it. Okay, so that's how those options would get defaulted. And here if you want to go with the sourcing level, just sourcing level also, if you want to use for procurement card purpose, or if you want to mark it as a primary pay, so primary, this is a primary site when you make the payments, that you can select here. How you require the site purpose, that you can specify. And what are the address we selected, that is system is defaulting as a site. Okay, that name you can override. You can say Google site 1. So after just selecting the address, system will default the same address name as a site name, that you can override. If you want to change any purposes, you can change it. You can just remove, or you may just add some additional purposes. Now after that you have to click on save, so that these tabs will get enabled and will be able to assign this site to specific business unit. Just click on save. Okay, click on save. Now you could see these tabs are enabled. And we can go to the tab called as payments tab to set default payment method. So we given at profile level, right? Profile level we given, if you provided address level, that would get default to site, but address level we didn't specify default payment method, so let's set at site level. Okay, site level we are setting default payment method. Now you can go to site assignments. So before that you can just save it. Okay, now we'll go and assign this site to specific business unit. Go to site assignments, click on create. Okay, select our business unit, and here Okay, here see, just when we are doing some task, like I request you just allow me to complete the task, then you can just you can raise your questions, then that would be just I mean, still, if any other considerations you are going to have, that also you can ask as a questions. So just I'm just trying to complete this assignment task, and I want to discuss here something which is related to that. After completing that, you can just you can raise your question, please. Okay, fine. Just go to site assignments, click on create and select our business unit. So see here, we can see only one business unit, Google US business unit. The reason is the current user, Google user is procurement agent only for this business unit. If you create the same user as a procurement agent for other business unit, you will find that other business unit also here. Now, as of now, the current user is acting as a procurement agent only for this business unit. Okay, that is a point. And here, what is the meaning of the BU names? Client BU, bill to BU. Okay, so we have a centralized procurement functionality. So in case of centralized procurement functionality, one BU can raise the requisition, another BU can place the purchase order, another BU will take the responsibility of making the payment, which is possible in the centralized procurement process. Since so that kind of process can be implemented, so according to that process they given these naming conventions. The procurement BU means which BU will create the purchase order. The client BU is nothing but the BU which may raise the requisitions. So just you place here. So client BU is nothing but the BU which BU will raise the requisitions if required. And bill to BU is nothing but it is invoice BU. Sometimes most of the times requisition BU and invoicing BU will be the same. You see, just see that pop up. BU that process invoices for orders raised by one or more requisition BUs. Okay, that means you can have a different BUs to raise the requisition. One BU can raise the requisition, another BU can raise the purchase order against that requisition, and another BU will take the responsibility of making the payment. So to manage that kind of business requirement also, so we have a centralized procurement functionality. So in that case, so when you create any supplier sites, here you can specify, see, this is a procurement BU, and you may have a separate requisition BU. In that case, that you can select here, and you may have a separate BU which will be involving in the payment process. But in the current scenario, all the BUs, so requisition BU, PO BU, and invoice BU all are same. Okay, so this is a point we have to understand. So we know when you create the supplier site in EBS, automatically system will default accounts to supplier site. Which accounts? Liability account, the prepaid account, and discount accounts, right? Those account system will default to supplier site. Here if you notice, system is not defaulting. Liability, prepayment, okay, these accounts are not defaulting. Even we given this liability prepayment accounts at common options. Okay, that's how they build the functionality. It won't default. The reason is, so the requisition BU can be one, and bill to BU, I mean payment BU can be one. Depending on that, we have to choose the uh, we have to choose the specific code combination. That is the reason they are not defaulting. So procurement BU can be one, requisition BU can be one, and invoicing BU can be one. So if you, when we are doing the setups basically we do with this procurement BU. Okay, procurement BU level, what are the common options we set? So those normally should get defaulted, but since here we have based on the business requirement, you may have a different BUs. That is the reason they are not defaulting the liability and other account code combinations automatically. So how you require which code combination you want system to take, and you create the invoice as a liability code combination that you can specify. If you don't specify any code combination here, when you create the invoice against a specific business unit, for that specific business unit in the common options, whatever the liability account is available, directly system will take liability account from common options to invoice creation. Okay, in EBS always system takes liability account from supplier side only. We provide in the financial options in EBS that would get defaulted to supplier side. That same information will default from supplier side to invoice creation. But here, if you provide in the supplier site level, then it will system will derive from site to invoice creation. Otherwise, directly it will derive from the common options only. So just this is a point we have to notice. If you want to set the default distribution set, you can set here so that it would get defaulted whenever you create invoice against this site, or else we can select at the time of invoice creation. So these are the points we have to understand when you talk about supplier site. So just we have to select address, system will default, you can override the name, you can set the purposes. If you want to set, you should normally we should set default payment method at site level, and the site assignments you can assign the site to one or multiple business units. For how many business units the procurement agent has access, so for only those BUs only you can assign the site information. When you talk about accounts in EBS, this will get defaulted, it won't happen. If you provide, system will take that accounts for invoice creation as a liability account, which is a credit account. If you don't provide at the time of invoice creation, system will derive liability account directly from common options to invoice creation. So these are the points here we have to understand. Any questions, please? Any questions related to this supplier site definition and supplier site assignment to specific business unit, please?
Yeah, Lakshmi. One question I have. At
Can
the
you be
site
bit loud
purpose,
anytime, please?
uh,
My request is when you ask some questions, just please make sure that you are making just bit high voice.
okay. At address level, we had for the purpose we had RFQ, but at this site level, I don't see sourcing only enabled automatically, because when I'm thinking of RFQ, I'm thinking of sourcing. So I was thinking that since address has RFQ purpose, site would automatically default the sourcing only. Um,
No. See,
so
yeah, that level we have the procurement. The procurement would be enough. Procurement checkbox will allow you to go with that RFQ also. It will support. That is the reason. Just that's how they merged those options into purchasing. Okay, the source
okay,
only means for negotiations and all you can use this. This is the additional option. Purchasing will support for those options. Okay, what are the three checkboxes we enabled over there? Those first two checkboxes. Okay, procurement and that RFQ bidding, they just merged with this purpose of purchasing, and payment they given as a separate. Okay,
okay.
that's how
Other
it
question I
happens.
have.
Sorry.
My other question I have is regarding the distribution set.
Yep.
So distribution set, we only set it up for the like expense account or something like that,
Correct.
not for like any liability or not for any revenue kind of account, right? It's only for
We
like
never do
expense
that,
account.
right? We never do distribution with that when you talk about payables. Payables will just spend some expense or you buy something. So that amount, invoice amount, need to be distributed. So liability and all should not be. It's not like a distribution. Liability account system will take from site and all. Right, in EBS how it happens.
Right,
Same
same thing.
logic. You don't need to look for any other point here. Same logic. Same logic. So what are the additional point we have to understand that we discussed? In EBS, always system will take the liability account from common options to supplier side. The reason supplier side level liability account is mandatory. Okay, system automatically will default. So that should not be part of distribution. If you want to create multiple the distributions liability accounts at supply for every invoice, for that we have to modify the SLA, right? So for each debit line you want to have a equivalent liability lines credit side, you have to modify the SLA. As per standard functionality, only one liability account you'll get. That remains same. No changes to that.
Yeah, and but at the supplier level, we can still update we can have our own liability account.
You can specify the liability account. If you provide liability account, whatever you are providing here, that system will take for invoice. If you don't provide anything, it will directly derive from the common options.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about auto create assignments?
Sorry?
Auto create assignments.
Auto create assignments. What do you mean by auto create assignments?
Yeah, I mean there is auto create assignments button, right?
Okay, these assignments, site assignments. Okay, what are the sites? See this procurement agent. Okay, this procurement agent has access to how many business units that information will be having. Okay, if you just click on that, what system will do is just it will verify this procurement agent have access to how many business units. So that system will verify, and within those business units, how many business units are selected as a client business units, those it will select automatically. So in centralized procurement, we have a separate setup. Within that setup, you can specify which is a client business unit, which is a requisition business unit, and which is a bill to business unit. Based on that setup, it will derive the values here. That too within this procurement agent BUs only. This procurement agent has access to how many BUs. Within those BUs, okay, how many business units are selected into that procurement related, I mean centralized procurement related separate setup we have. Within that setup, it will verify how many BUs. You say this agent has access to 2 BUs. The 2 BUs are selected as a client BUs in that procurement, centralized procurement definition. Those it will default here. That is the purpose they given. Manually you can select. Otherwise, however it is specified, those you want to default here, you can click on it will select. That's it. Okay. Fine. So this is what we have site. We have to assign site to business unit. Yeah, please.
The client BU, it's for requisition, or is it for requisition and purchase order?
See, not purchase order. Purchase order procurement BU. Client BU for requisition. Okay, and bill to BU can be for invoice. Okay, general invoice, and bill to BU and client BU. Most of the cases it would be same. The same requisition BU, the BU which will be raising requisition, same BU will be making the payment, and procurement can be done by another BU or else. So procurement BU and client BU, bill to BU will be same. And here sometimes this term in the previous versions they used instead of bill to, sold to BU. The bill to BU, sold to BU same. That means supplier is sold to which BU. Okay. Against that sale supplier did, which BU is going to make the payment. Sold to BU or
You said there is a centralized system wherein you
sorry.
Give. You said there is a centralized system wherein you define that, right?
Correct.
Will that be? I mean, we are going to define that in the implementation and set up
procurement. That is a complete procurement section. Okay, I'll show you a setup. I'll show you where you can specify that client BU and other specification. When we are in the purchasing, we'll be working on PDP cycle, right? So at that point of time, like I'll just take you through that setup where you can specify for system understanding. Yeah, we'll do that.
Lakshman?
Yeah, please.
Do you have any supply site number functionality here?
Supply?
Site numbering.
Yes, definitely number system will create in the backend. It will, for every definition, like every record it will create, but we don't use in the front end like as that information.
But EBS we have supply site numbering in a manual and automatic. That's right.
Site numbering, no. Supplier numbering we have, not site.
Site number also, EBS we have site numbering also.
Where we have?
Manual and
Tell me the navigation.
Profile option, through profile option, we can do that manual and automatic numbering. We can check that.
Site numbering.
Party site through party site number profile option. We can use that party site numbering profile option. We can set site number is manual or automatic. We can set that. In EBS.
A party site, it could be any party, right? You have for a specific to supplier.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not specific for supplier, it's for supplier, customer, and bank. Everything is coming under the
party TCA model
site numbering
that they given. It's not just for supplier or something else. Yeah. So that
functionality is not available.
TCA model we have in EBS. The same functionality they just retained in this. I mean, they taken into the Fusion application. If you are talking about that option, yes, that would be available here also. But we don't have any some options separately where you can go and set for specific. I mean, some supplier definition only that we don't have. So that option is not available. Yeah. The party.
What is freeze here?
Freeze means here the same screen here, whatever you could see, you want to make a just copy, you can use that freeze. See here, this screen I want to freeze this section. I'll just click on freeze. It will allow you to detach that selection. We'll see that. Click on freeze. This is freezed. Now you can click on detach. That part it will pick separately. It will just take as a separate piece. So where you can have this, you can focus on this section of information. Okay, fine. So to detach that specific part, you can freeze that area of the information, and you can do that. That is the meaning of freeze.
Yeah, Lakshman.
Yeah.
In EBS, say supposing we have same address for the site, two sites, same site name, same address, but in two different operating units. Is that achievable in Fusion?
Yes, you can do that. Same like you have to create the site and you have to assign. We are not creating any site address or site BU specific, right? We are creating, those are just common definitions and those we are assigning. So the same address you can see, the same site you can assign to multiple BUs, or else you can just go on to create one more site and you can use the same address. That is possible. Against one address you can create multiple sites. One site can be assigned to multiple BUs which has same address. Yeah. So that is possible that you can do it. Okay. Yeah, just say save and close. This is all about supplier definition. If you want to add some supplier contact information, you can add in the contacts, and we have a separate module as a part of procurement called as supplier qualifications. So when we implement that, the supplier qualifications will be using all this information. Okay, now for normal supplier definition is not required. This is all about just supplier definition. You can say save and close. So supplier definition is ready, and we created supplier profile, supplier address, site, and site we assigned to business unit. Done. So it's already 9:30. We can just wind up for today. We'll connect tomorrow and we'll continue from here. So apart from these as a core setups, we have to create the bank branch, bank account, and payment process profile, and finally we'll assign payables related roles to user, and we'll assign the business unit to those roles, and we'll submit the LDAP job, and we'll open the payables periods, and we'll see how to create invoice and payment. In tomorrow's session we can go up to invoice creation to payment. Okay, any questions on today's session, please?
Lakshman, in EBS, yeah, you might be very familiar with the data model or technical tables we have.
Yeah.
And even for the functional setup, we have a model diagram. So such a diagram, by any chance, do you have? I tried it once in the Oracle. It couldn't find it. But by any chance, do you have such a model?
Yeah,
Where
I'll
it
take
just
you through one link
chart kind
you
of
can
thing,
find over there. Okay. So when you talk about the tables and some technical reference related information or any other set of information related to Fusion, just you can go to Google and you will be covering in our classes where you will be loading the data. You
Well,
have to navigate to that page.
yeah, well,
Yeah,
okay.
I'll show you that link. So just type as
Yeah, I'm specifically, okay, I'm specifically actually, okay. I'm actually specifically asking about the setup part, where
setup part.
setup flow diagram kind of,
Setup flow diagram.
the configuration, yeah.
Do you have an EBS setup flow diagram?
Yeah, a model.
Where you
I
can
think
find?
there was one very. I'm not. I think for EBS, probably I'll share one with you. Where it will tell. Where what needs to be. Like only if this is set up. This can have. There is one diagram. Which I think I have. I can go to my hard drive and I can share with you.
Yeah, just mail me. Mail me. I'll just look
Yeah,
into
yeah.
that, what you are talking about. But here, when I
Yeah,
talk
sure.
about setups in the very beginning classes, I taken through that few offering based documents, right? So there you can see complete task list, what setups need to be executed for each and every module, which setup is mandatory, which setup is optional, right? Those just we gone through. So that is a document available for the specific instance. Okay, you can just go with these options also here.
Yeah, a simple example would be like in one of your that Excel sheet. Yesterday you showed that reference data set. How you have like the payment terms in the reference data set and it is assigned, right? Likewise, that is what I try to mean.
See, I'll provide you the student guide. Okay, I'll provide you the student guide. There you can find good information, and anyway, like you can find out user guides as a open source. You can search in the Google Oracle Fusion user guides, and you can find that link. Okay, if required, I can
Okay.
share the same with you. That's how you can explore more on that. But when you talk about some sequence of setups, the sequence of setups and all here within the application, just we gone through that offering specific information. There we have a task list and relevant related objects, pages and all. So
Okay.
only just you can go through it. We go to offerings. See here, if you select financials, if you expand related documents, here you can find. If you want to see the list of setups for any application, you can go to setup task list and the task. It talks about which application, which setups need to be performed, which are mandatory, which are optional. The very beginning classes, just I taken through this information. Okay, here you can find within this, you can download the PDF file or Excel file. So there you can find the setup list, task list, and I'll be sharing the student guide within that also. You can find, now we are in very beginning, now it's anyway not required. That's the reason I didn't place in the Google Drive. Going forward, I'll be placing that student guides into the same drive, and you can go through it. And user guides also available to explore more on specific area of information. So these are the setups. Okay, fine. Any other questions, please?
Yeah, I have a question on the implementation project. Can I ask that?
Yeah, please. See, directly you can go with the question. Directly you can go ahead with the question. Please, anyone like if you have a question, directly you can.
Okay. So there's sometimes like we all say like some setups like financial options or there some of the setups we cannot create without using them without going through the implementation project because they require slow scope requires scope selection. So I never understand what does that mean. Like,
Sorry, what
so we always say that there are certain setups like financial options that we cannot do without going through the implementation project we have created.
yes,
So, and we say that the reason is it requires scope selection.
scope selection.
So, yeah, can you explain what that is? I don't have any idea what
See,
does that mean? Why
EBS,
certain things need to go through them or
I
not?
got it. I got your point. So in EBS, when you do some setups, directly you can navigate to that page. Within that page, they given the field to select the value. But here, instead of entering into that specific page and selecting the value before going, they just made the logic that value should get selected. So based on the selection, the page will open. So that's how they did it. So, and when you talk about that option, so if you want to do any setups, you have to create the implementation project. Through implementation project only we do all the setups. So you cannot directly do from this search page. And if not implementation project, the other option is you can go with this. Say for example, you are in this page. When you just click on setup and maintenance, basically it will be landing in this page. So here you can select you want to do the setups for which application. Okay. And you can search for specify ledger options. You can select here specify ledger options. Here also we have a scope selection if not from the project. Okay, select your ledger. You can do from here. In case of EBS, just so directly we enter into the specific page and we'll select. But when you talk about specify ledger options in EBS, we do that setup as a part of ledger only. Within the ledger only we'll do. But when I talk about other setups where we specify scope, okay, scope in the sense we want to perform that setup for which object, which entity, that can be ledger or business unit or anything. So that's how just they given the process. Okay, you have to select the scope if you want to enter into that page for specific definition. Okay, so ideally we use project only, we don't do through this process.
But even if we don't go through implementation project and we just go through the
Yes. For few setups,
they'll ask for the scope.
yeah, for few setups they give an option directly. You can navigate within that page. You can select. That's how they're given. Yes, that's true. So for see which I mean, when you talk about scope selection, say you have 100 tasks need to be performed. Out of 100, say 50 tasks are specific to business unit. 50 tasks are specific to business unit. In that case, the business unit they make it as a scope selection. So when you perform 50 tasks, so instead of selecting business unit 50 times, if that is selected in the scope, the 50 times you don't need to click on LOV of business unit, you don't need to search for business unit, you no need to select the business unit. So one or two times if you select the scope, that would reflect for other BU specific setups also. When we are performing the remaining say 48 setups, for two setups you selected business unit in the scope, because of that it may reflect for remaining 48 tasks. When we are performing the 48 tasks, you no need to go and select the BU. Once again you just directly click on go to task icon, so that system will drive you to that page by selecting the same BU. That's how to simplify the configuration. They came up with that logic. Okay, so yeah.
Can we select the scope at a parent, like at the offering level, or is it only selected at the task level something?
How we did?
I think we did it at the task level, not
Yes,
at the offering level.
that is true. Only task.
But
Because we cannot do any setup directly offering level, right? When you say setup, task only. That should be selected task level only.
but some tasks could be like can have a parent-child relationship. So in that case,
Yes,
can
we
we
can have
assign
a
it to a
parent-child
parent?
relation. Finally, setup point of view, those will become independent. There could be some dependency in terms of task. See, every task, there will be many tasks. Whatever the task you create, that would be under parent task only. Parent task means task list. But those need to be performed one by one. Those should refer some primary ledger or business unit. So even that is
Right.
the case, you
So
have
the
to
parent.
select. So listen. So you said like parent level, you have one task list. Under that you have a 5 tasks. When you have a 5 task, if you go on to select scope as your primary ledger, for remaining tasks also automatically system will select. You might have seen, you just notice when you are practicing, you go on to specify ledger options. You go on to specify the ledger options. So that ledger need to be used for which other tasks also system will default. If you select any value for scope for one task, so what are the other relevant tasks we have where ledger selection is required, which are falling under same task list, it will default for all those tasks also. When you just do these setups, you can notice, you can understand.
Value for scope. What is that?
Sorry.
What did you say? Sorry. You said something like value for scope.
Yeah, what are the value you select, that would get defaulted for other tasks also. If all the tasks, I mean the value what you are selecting, it is required for all the tasks under same task list. I'll show you here, just see. I'll go to financials, I'll go to specify ledger options. See, I selected ledger options only for Google US. I mean, Google US primary ledger I selected only for specific. So system defaulted same value. Value means here ledger name for other tasks also, because these all tasks falls under same task list. Task list is nothing but, as you are mentioning, parent task. We didn't select for remaining 4, right? System selected because all are falling under same task list. Fine. So any other questions from anyone, please?
Yeah, Lakshman, I'm sending you that PDF. It's called a setup ERD.
Okay. So what is the source of the document?
Actually, I do not know. I just have it. So that's why I thought probably for Fusion, if we.
Anyway, I'll just look into that. I'll reply to that. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, fine. That might be created by someone, some project team or someone, some individual or some company, etc.
So it has.
I'll just
So
look
it has
at that
Oracle.
and reply back, and we'll discuss on that.
Yeah, it has Oracle logo in it.
Yeah, okay. We'll see that. Fine. So any other questions from anyone, please? Fine. So no questions. We'll connect tomorrow and just we'll go through the remaining bank payment related setups, and we'll see the process of invoice creation to payment. So that's all for today. We'll connect tomorrow. Thank you and have a good day and good night.